All right, so we've had Sarah, for better or for worse, and we've had Hagar. Wow, Hagar. And then we'll focus on Rebecca because Rebecca does get, speaking of playing time and exposure and all of that, we get Rebecca, introduced to Rebecca in chapter 24. So if you have your Bible and you want to flip there, Rebecca is introduced to us in chapter 24. That's where the courtship scene happens. And then Rebecca has twins in chapter 25. Those are Jacob and Esau. And then we have not too much Rebecca in chapter 26 other than Isaacing with her in chapter 26. And then 27 is probably the most popular narrative of Rebecca, and that is the trickery of Isaac, the deceit there, okay? So I want to try to talk about all three chapters. 24, second half of 25, and then the first half of 27. That might be tricky business. So what I'll do is I will start with chapter 24, and maybe instead of reading the whole chapter, I'll just kind of do some summary remarks here. Now, here's one thing. Chapter 24, longest chapter in Genesis. Now, why is it that Rebecca, a matriarch, would get the longest chapter in Genesis? It's pretty long. And it covers, so the beginning of chapter 24, you can see it there. Abram is old, he's advanced in years, and he has this servant. Some would say this is probably Eleazar still. Luther calls him Eleazar, that's fine. But we're not given a name, and I think that's because this is like the Hauptmann. This is the guy, this is his servant, this is his lead. This is like the passing on of the torch, as it were. This is a lead servant in his house. Put your hand under my thigh. And there's a lot of, there's a lot of reflection on this business of the thigh. The language of the Israelites are the people that come from Jacob's thigh. So the descendants, put your hand under my thigh. Also, of course, we're looking forward to this promised Messiah who is to come. And so Augustine famously says, Christ is in the thigh. And Luther will say that too, and others. Christ is in the thigh, that I may make you swear. And why? To take a wife for my son, this would be Isaac, from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I dwell, but will go to my country and to my kindred, and take a wife for my son Isaac. Okay, so don't take a son from the Canaanites, but go to my own country. The servant is a little hesitant. What if she doesn't come back with me? Make sure you don't take my son back there. The Lord will see to it. This is his promise. If the woman's not willing to follow you, verse 8, you'll be free from this oath. But don't take my son back there. So the servant swears this in verse 9. The servant then takes camels, all the goods for the trip. He makes the camels kneel by a well of water. In the evening. When the women go out to draw water. And he says a prayer. I'm standing by the spring of water. The daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. Let the young woman to whom I shall say, please let your jar down, that I may drink, who shall say, drink, and I will water your camels. Let her be the one whom you have appointed for your servant Isaac. By this I shall know that you have shown steadfast love to my master. I think what I'll do is read till... let's say verse 28, and then I'll talk about Rebecca a little bit here. Before he had finished speaking, behold, Rebecca, who was born to Bethuel, the son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, came out with her water jar on her shoulder. The young woman was very attractive in appearance, a maiden whom no man had known. She went down to the spring and filled her jar and came up. Then the servant ran to meet her and said, "Please give me a little water to drink from your jar." She said, "Drink, my lord." And she quickly let down her jar upon her hand and gave him a drink. When she had finished giving him a drink, she said, "I will draw water for your camels also until they have finished drinking." So she quickly emptied her jar into the trough and ran again to the well to draw water, and she drew for all his camels. The man gazed at her in silence to learn whether the Lord had prospered his journey or not. When the camels had finished drinking, the man took a gold ring weighing a half shekel and 2 bracelets for her arms weighing 10 gold shekels and said, "Please tell me whose daughter you are. Is there room in your father's house for us to spend the night?" She said to him, "I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, whom she bore to Nahor." She added, "We have plenty of both straw and fodder and room to spend the night." The man bowed his head and worshipped the Lord and said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his steadfast love and his faithfulness toward my master. As for me, the Lord has led me in the way to the house of my master's kinsman." Then the young woman ran and told her mother's household about these things. The narrative goes on from there. There's conversation about what happened. That's part of what makes this chapter so long, is that it's, here's what happened, and then here's a recounting of what happened, and then now they're in the house, and then here's what happened. And so it's kind of a, why, there's a little a repetitive feel to it sometimes. Why is it a kind of cyclical thing that this is what happened, and then now I need to recount what happened? And then that Joseph narrative does that too. Here's a dream. Pharaoh had a dream. Here, okay, 2 horses and all this. Or the 7 cows, or 2 horses. It's after lunch. 7 cows, 7 stalks, and so on. Then he has it. And then it's like, oh, Pharaoh needs to recount it to Joseph, and then he recounts it, right? And so you get this, and why is that? Well, it's case by case, but in this case, I think it's, okay, we're preaching this, we're re-preaching this, we're re-preaching this. This is how the Lord has worked to raise up a wife for Isaac, okay? And it's the longest chapter in Genesis because of what Rebecca will show us about the church. It's really remarkable. Now, what am I getting at? Well, several things. Rebecca, let's see, where am I? Rebecca is basically first introduced to us. It's just really worth thinking about. Why is this the longest chapter? Okay, of all the chapters, that sacrifice of Isaac was pretty intense. Maybe we can have a longer chapter there, right? But this is the longest chapter. This bride and water and Rebecca. Okay, now you heard me read that Rebecca was very beautiful. Now that's interesting. Sarah was beautiful in appearance. She was kind of like a Garden of Eden, walking tree, as it were. Don't touch or you'll die. But Rebecca comes on and she's exceedingly good. That was verse 16 I read. Okay? And all this talk about doing things quickly, running around, quickly emptying her jar, running again. Sarah was known for doing things quickly, but Rebecca even more so. Sarah was known for making cakes quickly, but it's Rebecca who's doing something quickly again and again and again and again, quickly letting down her jar, quickly emptying her jar into the trough, quickly doing this, quickly doing that. Okay? It's as if Rebecca comes onto the scene and she's like an even better Sarah, an even more thoroughly described Sarah. She's quick. She's very beautiful. She's like an even better, like a Sarah par excellence. Okay? And then you also heard, where is Rebecca? She is at the well. Okay? Which is great because That's exactly where Hagar was. The servant prays that the future wife for Isaac would be standing by the spring of water. That's the exact place, the exact words where Hagar was. Okay? So Rebecca is like an even better Sarah, more thoroughly described, faster, even more beautiful. And she's also at the same location where Hagar was, at least in terms of the words that are used. That's the same spot. You're exactly where... Now, okay, so Hagar was found by springs of water. That's where Rebecca is. Springs of water. These Genesis narratives, these matriarchs, they're continuing to build one on another. Okay? And then, of course, Hagar had some focus of water. Hagar was by the well of water. Hagar did water that boy, Ishmael, right? And she was known for filling that water skin with water that we just talked about in chapter 21. But here in chapter 24, not only is Rebecca described as working at a well, that's verse 20, she's working at this well, but we even get at the end of this chapter, I didn't read it, but at the end you can see this in verse 62, we even get the exact name of that well of Hagar. In verse 62, Be'er Lachai Roy, the well of the living one who sees me, or my living one who's seeing me. Rebecca is at the exact well that, or not at that exact well, but that exact well is mentioned in the introduction to Rebecca, okay? So Rebecca is at a well, spring of water. The mentioning of Hagar's well takes place later on in this, okay? And the other thing that's kind of cool is we just talked about Hagar's eyes being opened up to see a life-changing well. And then at the end of this chapter, I didn't read all of this, but Rebecca's eyes in verse 64 will also be lifted up to see a life-changing person, and that would be Isaac. And so there's a lot of... Okay, so when Rebecca comes onto the scene here, you sound a lot like Sarah, only even enhanced. And you also sound like you have a lot of similarities to Hagar, only again, even more so. Okay? So, like Hagar was known for filling up a water jar and giving water. Well, Rebecca, and then I love the way, why is this chapter so long? Part of the reason it's so long is because of all the attention of Rebecca on drawing water. She fills the jar. She waters the camel. She goes above and beyond in these ways. She's known for being a water drawer. She's like a kind of special, she's a really special lady when it comes to water. Okay? She's even described in a good biblical number, 7 different ways. Rebecca, throughout this one chapter, is a young woman. She's a virgin. She's a maiden. She's a daughter. She's a sister. She's a wife. Will be. And a water drawer. Okay? She's the whole package. Like matriarch of matriarchs. It's like she's another Sarah, another Hagar, and yet surpassing them in beauty, in quickness, in water works. And this is also part of the reason the narrative is so long is because it always gives you 7s. Like Hagar was mentioned with water, but this chapter mentions water 7 times with Rebecca. Okay? Or the verb to give a drink 7 times. She's the perfect water drinker. Water drawer. Okay? And you get these 7s of water. 7 give to drink. Spring, just a couple times with Hagar, but 7 with Rebecca. Why all the 7s? Water, 7 times. Spring, 7 times. Giving someone to drink, 7 times. 7, 7, 7, 7. We're in Vegas. Okay? Now, here's the other thing about Rebekah, and as the narrative unfolds, maybe you kind of know this. She does end up leaving, right? So here's Rebekah, and it's kind of amazing, right? That it's before he finishes praying, this is the one, okay? And she goes above and beyond, and she does end up leaving, and so it is kind of amazing to think about, because doesn't that sound like not only that she's not only these kind of surpassing earlier matriarchs, but what about this? Leaving her home, leaving her family, leaving her, this is what Abraham did. Now she's doing something she's got stuff that sounds like matriarchs, but Rebekah also have things that sound like, wait, that's what Abraham did. Abraham had to leave home, leave father, leave mother, and all of these things, okay? Some have described her as like a kind of female Abraham. And that's okay, but there's a lot more to be said there, okay? So Abraham was running around earlier to serve visitors in chapter 18. Rebekah is running even more, okay? She's running around. She's the first woman in the Bible to run, so for what that's worth. She's a runner, runs more than Abraham, okay? So nicely done, Rebekah. And then also fascinatingly, the promise that Rebekah gives, when she finally does leave, okay, when she finally does leave, that promise that the Bible that you have in front of you probably indents, like our sister, this would be verse 60 of chapter 24. Our sister, may you become thousands of 10,000s, and may your offspring possess the gate of those who hate him. Well, that's language that only Abraham gets. Possessing the gate of the enemy and so on. That's Jacob, Isaac, her own husband. This is stuff that is said to Abraham and Rebekah. Okay, so there's like, she's a marvelous matriarch, surpassing Sarah and Hagar in various ways, and then she's doing things that reminds us of also another patriarch. And that is, she gets a promise that's spoken only to Abraham and to her. Or she's the one that's leaving family, leaving father and mother, and so on. She's kind of surpassing what we might expect. Okay? And that's also true in other ways. So, for example, the servant says what? I really want, okay, this is my prayer. Let the young woman to whom I will say, pour down your jar that I may drink. And who will say, drink, and I will water your camels. That's verse 14. Let her be the one whom you have appointed for your servant Isaac. Okay? And then Rebekah comes onto the scene. She says, drink. And then it's, well, I'm also going to water all of your camels. Okay? The servant just wanted water drawn, and Rebekah not only draws that water, but also says, I'm going to water all your camels, and I'm going to water them until they're done drinking. They're going to have their fill. Okay? And then you do the math on these, like, wait, a camel in the desert, can't they drink like 25 gallons? And then there's 10 camels, that's 250 gallons, and it's 8 pounds a gallon, and so that's like 2,000 pounds. And how strong is this woman? Okay? The point is, she's watering and watering and watering and watering and watering and watering and watering. That's the point. She's known for up and down, getting the water, 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 all the time. That's what she's known for. That's the point. Don't let the math bother you too much. Because how could she? Nope, can't trust the Bible. No woman can do that much water. No, she's known as, so she's surpassing all these expectations. The servant has expectations, okay? And so she surpasses that.
She had servants as well, though, right?
We learn at the end of the chapter that she also had servants, which is awesome because Genesis loves to do this to you. It'll give you a narrative. You think there's only 2 people involved, and then all of a sudden it's Others are involved. Why is that? Because they have followers. They have ones who take up their position and follow the lead role. The servant also has servants, we find out later. But that's the narrative extending into future times and places. It's not just about two people in a love story. It's about that plus those who take up their cross and follow along, okay? And then again, like, okay, so the servant says, do you have a room? Yeah, Rebecca says not only a room, but also straw and fodder and just all kinds of, so she's exceeding expectations. And I would say this is true even with respect to Abraham. Okay, now this might push it a little bit, but I think it's the case. Okay, because the first thing you notice is what happens? Well, she has to leave her homeland, like I said. But Rebecca, unlike Abraham, had no direct command to do this. Abraham, leave your home. I will bless you, right? And then he goes, and that's remarkable. But Rebecca, she didn't have the heavens parting and a voice from the Lord, right? She had some dude, right? She had a servant. Hey, you want to get married to somebody you haven't met? You know, that's what she had. Are you willing to leave your father? You're willing to leave everything? Leave West Bend, Wisconsin? You know, for this, I haven't even seen him. Is he Missouri Synod? Right? So, okay, I don't know. Right? So, and she does. She does. She leaves. She leaves it all, okay, without this. In fact, her own family, who were Wisconsin Synod, they tried to, just kidding. No, but her own family, what does her own family do? They try to tempt her to stay. Don't go. Don't go. Okay, she had the added temptation. She didn't have a direct command from the Lord. She also had the added pressure by her own family to say, don't go. And she still went. Okay? And that's verse 55 and so on. And then even when it comes to the time to depart, she's the one that leaves, yes, Pastor Fisher, with her own young women, before the servant is even said to take her. So it's like, do you want to go? And then she's already out. You know, she's like, and the servant's like, do you want to go? You know, like he's, okay, I guess we're going. Oh, right? Okay. Okay, now would you like to, hey, where are you going? You know, I'm running the show here. She's already gone. She's already gone. Okay, and then of course, another 7. Who's told and referenced of going, leaving, all of this 7 times? It's in reference to Rebecca. 7 times with reference to Rebecca, she's the one that goes. I thought Abram was the one that was known for going and leaving his family. Now it's Rebecca. Okay? By the way, another thing, she's not just leaving her homeland, she's leaving father and mother. Genesis, leaving father and mother. Who leaves them? For this reason, therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother. Here's the woman. Here's the woman leaving father and mother. Okay, to be united to her husband. Okay? And I also think, by the way, I didn't read the whole chapter, but I also think if you look through Genesis chapter 24, you get these references to like her mother's household. Now, why are we talking about her mother's household? Where's her father? Okay? Where's her father? Bethuel. It's like he's gone from the narrator. Okay, why is Moses not doing this? It's like in verse 28, you get a reference to mother's household. Okay, I thought she had a dad. Isn't it daughter of Bethuel? Well, where is he? Is he dead? No, he's there. He's in like verse 50. Okay, he's kind of added in there, right? Everybody thinks, oh, well, okay, what happened? You know, are they living in different houses? Mother's household, but you have a father, and what's all this doing? She's leaving father and mother. That's the whole point. I think the narrative has already killed them off. Anyway, the biggest shocker in this chapter, well, it's not the most obvious. That's the problem. It's not the most obvious, especially in English. But I think it's there. Okay? And I wouldn't tell you about it if I didn't think it was there. But at the end of chapter 24, I'm convinced this is what's going on. So you'll have to just tell me if I've lost it. At the end of 24, it has to do already. Now, Isaac, we know, toward the end of his life, he will be blind, can't see very well. Okay? Now, already at the end of chapter 24, these last few verses, when they finally see each other, I love the way that the text compares and contrasts the way that they see each other. Okay? So Isaac goes out to meditate in the field toward evening. What is he doing? He lifts up his eyes and he saw, and behold, there were camels coming. Rebekah lifted up her eyes, and when she saw Isaac, she dismounted from the camel and said to the servant, "Who is that man walking in the field to meet us?" The servant said, "It is my master." She then veils herself, covers herself. The servant told Isaac all the things that he had done. Isaac brings her into the tent of Sarah. She became his wife, and he loved her. Isaac was comforted. Notice it says married first and then love. Love, I guess we kind of think of, fall in love first, then get married. They married, and that love, it's like Bonhoeffer talking about marriage as, it's not the love that will sustain your marriage, but the marriage that will sustain your love. Side topic. But nonetheless, there. Okay, here is the thing. And it doesn't really come through as much in English as it does in the sentence structure of how it's written in Hebrew. But this is that's part of the fun. Okay? I think you can already tell something about Isaac's eyesight at the end of 24, because a lot of people think they just see each other at the same time. I don't think so. Isaac lifts up his eyes to see camels. But in the very next set of clauses, this is verse 63, early 64, Rebekah lifts up her eyes to see Isaac. The first sees not Rebekah, but a group of camels. But Rebekah sees Isaac and then dismounts from her camel, for that matter, before even knowing it is Isaac. And so I think already you're getting this kind of wait, they don't. Their eyesight is different. And that's at this point, that's all you're told. Okay, the eyesight is different. I would say it's already relatively dim. In relation to Rebekah, his eyesight is not as good. And I think that's just a subtle way. He was able to see camels, she saw him. Okay? And already it's like, why are you describing their eyesight differently? Okay? Now that's where 24 ends. Okay? We got this awesome matriarch. Sounds like Sarah, even better. Sounds like Hagar, even better. Sounds like Abraham, even better. Okay, that's 24. 25 is when we have, let's see. Maybe we should just read this. 25 is only part of the chapter. 25, the birth of Esau and Jacob. Oh my. Isaac is 40 years old. So this is verse 20. I'm picking it up with verse 20. Isaac is 40 years old. He takes Rebekah to be his wife. Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife because she was barren. And the Lord granted his prayer, and Rebekah, his wife, conceived. The children struggled together within her, and she said, "If it is thus, why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other, the older shall serve the younger." And then we have the account of the birth of Jacob and Esau. Esau, a skillful hunter, man of the field. Jacob, a quiet man, dwelling in tents. Isaac loved Esau because he ate of his game. Rebekah loved Jacob. Okay? Now, some more contrasts here, right? Because at first, what happens? She's barren, which reminds us of, again, the matriarchs, right? She's barren, okay? Sarah was barren and so on. Rachel will be, okay? The first thing that you notice there, so this is another contrast, okay? So she's barren like Sarah. What is Isaac doing? Isaac prays. But Rebekah actually does what? Goes to inquire of the Lord. Now, what does that mean? Isaac prays. Rebekah actually goes to inquire of the Lord. What does that mean? Well, I guess you could say she's going somewhere. Where would she go? She's going. There's movement. Movement's involved. Okay? Isaac prayed right where he was, and the Lord heard the prayer. It's not, the Lord heard the prayer and she did conceive. But in contrast, again, so we had one little contrast between Rebekah with the eyesight, but now we have another one, and that is Rebekah actually goes to seek the Lord. Inquire and seek is the same term. Sounds like what God's people should be doing throughout the ages, seeking the Lord while he may be found. But she goes to a particular place. Now, where'd she go? Now, Luther has an explanation. He would say, she goes
to the water.
She goes, you're not far off. Goes to the water, goes to the house of the Lord, where the water would be, goes to the priest, goes to the house of the Lord, goes to the means of grace, goes to the water, goes to physical, tangible location, means of grace, and inquires of the Lord through a called and ordained servant. Okay? At the time, Luther even suspects, and he gets this from, this is rabbinic, this is like a Jewish tradition, and Luther's okay with it, and that is, she goes to inquire of Shem. Whoa, he's still alive, one of Noah's sons, so Luther does all the math. It looks like Shem's still around. He would have been the high priest, he would have been the bishop of the whole world.
Isn't it some who believe that he's Melchizedek?
And then Luther says, I'm also okay with the opinion that he is Melchizedek, same person. Okay, now that's another can of worms for another time. But that's the point. Isaac stays where he is and prays. That's not a bad thing. But what does Rebekah do? Oh my, not only better eyesight, but better discernment. Go to the house of the Lord, go to inquire of the Lord. And she gets, now Isaac has prayer granted, but she gets a full-blown oracle. Right? That's right here on the screen. And then at that point you have to wonder, did that dinner time conversation include what you heard today? Okay, because she actually went. And now we have this kind of like Adam and Eve ambiguity where it's like, wait, did Adam tell Eve about the command about the tree? Did he do that faithfully and she messed it up? How does that work? Now it's like she went to get this sermon and Isaac is wherever he is. Again, prayer, it was heard, but she gets a full-blown oracle. So Rebekah continues to surpass in relation to Isaac. She gets this oracle here. And this will be governed, well, I'm going to reference this when we get to 27 here shortly, okay? And you're right, Pastor Fisher Luther says, she went to the saintly patriarch Shem, who together with Shelah and Eber was still living. She was sent to him as to a public place, here you go, Fran, to a public place and to a public person where they knew the church was. So it's one thing to be at your home, but where's the church? For Shem was a most saintly man who had in his charge the whole church. He preached the word and taught about faithful worship during so many centuries after the flood. And you can find similar views in other people. But here's another thing about Rebekah. Okay, so she actually goes and gets this, and then she thought that she would have, it's a line from Luther that's like, she thought maybe she just had one child. She's praying only for her own life and that of her child. And then because of who she is, because of her trust in the Lord, she has not only one kid, but two, okay? If it's thus, why thus? Why is this happening to me? And so Luther says she asks for a trifle, but she ends up with receiving a mountain of gold. And then finally, notice that other contrast. After the twins are born, Isaac loves Esau. Why? Because he ate of his game, or literally, because the game is in his mouth. Okay? Because the game was in his mouth. That's why he loves Esau. But why does Rebekah love Jacob? Verse 28. She loves him. Why does she love him? She loves him. Why does she love him? She loves him. He's doing the cooking. He's in the tent. Which, by the way, is where God's people dwell. People building cities in Genesis, bad idea. The tent dwellers, that's God's people. Our citizenship is in heaven. And so Luther would say things, he's saintly, he's zealously devoted to the things of the Lord. He's fervent in his desire for the kingdom of God. This pleases his mother because she's saintly and godly and so on. The point is there's no strings attached. He loves Esau because the game is in his mouth, literally. You can just picture, I don't know about you, but I think of like a dog with a steak in his mouth. Because the game is in his mouth, I love you, right? Because you have a steak in your mouth, that's why you love him? Now we'll see this developed, okay? But then on the other hand, it's she loves Jacob, okay? And then already in 25, and we're going to end with 27 here, but already in 25 you're wondering, does her love for Jacob have something to do with this? Okay? The one shall be stronger than the other. The older shall serve the younger. Okay? Esau's the firstborn. Is she living by the word? Is she living by faith? Is she loving to see the fulfillment of the Lord's word in the life of Jacob? Okay? Is the oracle, the sermon that she received at Pilgrim last Sunday already, is that already shaping her behavior toward these boys? She loves to see the fulfillment that will happen. That's at the end of 25. Okay? So, again, to recap, we're kind of, okay, she's an awesome matriarch. Seems like she's even surpassing a patriarch, Abraham. She's besting Isaac continually, and now we've got this word that she hears. Okay? And she loves Jacob. Okay? And meanwhile, Esau has a steak in his mouth. All right? So that's the end of 25. Now, let me do this. I want to read for you 27. Because this is when things get really interesting. This is a good thing for the kiddo books when you have this artwork and the two sons and the trickery and so on. Okay? I think I'll read in English the first maybe 17 verses here. Okay? When Isaac was old and his eyes were dim so that he could not see, he called Esau his older son and said to him, "My son." And he answered, "Here I am." He said, "Behold, I am old. I do not know the day of my death. Now then take your weapons, your quiver and your bow, and go out to the field and hunt game for me, and prepare for me delicious food such as I love, and bring it to me so that I may eat, that my soul may bless you before I die." Now Rebekah was listening when Isaac spoke to his son Esau. So when Esau went to the field to hunt for game and bring it, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, "I heard your father speak to your brother Esau. Bring me game and prepare for me delicious food that I may eat it and bless you before the Lord before I die. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice as I command you. Go to the flock and bring me 2 good young goats, so that I may prepare from them delicious food for your father, such as he loves. and you shall bring it to your father to eat, so that he may bless you before he dies." But Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, "Behold, my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I shall seem to be mocking him and bring a curse upon myself and not a blessing." His mother said to him, "Let your curse be on me, my son. Only obey my voice and go. Bring them to me." So he went and took them and brought them to his mother, and his mother prepared delicious food such as his father loved. Then Rebekah took the best garments of Esau, her older son, which were with her in the house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. And the skins of the young goats she put on his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. And she put the delicious food and the bread which she had prepared into the hand of her son Jacob. I'll read just a little bit more here. So he went into his father and said, "My father." He said, "Here I am. Who are you, my son?" Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Now sit up and eat of my game, that your soul may bless me." But Isaac said to his son, "How is it that you have found it so quickly, my son?" He answered, "Because the Lord your God granted me success." Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Please come near, that I may feel you, my son, to know whether you are really my son Esau or not." So Jacob went near to Isaac his father, who felt him and said, "The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau." And he did not recognize him, because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed him. He said, "Are you really my son Esau?" He said, "I am." Then he said, "Bring it near to me, that I may eat of my son's game and bless you." So he brought it near to him, and he ate, and he brought him wine, and he drank. And then from there we get the blessing, and in that blessing is a direct quotation of some very unique language that's used in this oracle. Okay? Let me point out a few things here, because there's a lot going on here, and I want to try to kind of summarize this the best I can. Okay? So first things first, our introduction to Isaac. What are we told about Isaac? He's old and his eyes are dim. Okay? Get some food. I'm about to die. What a contrast between the beginning of chapter 24 when we started this Rebekah talk. Remember that one. What a contrast here. At the beginning of this chapter, a really old Abraham was just trying to get a good marriage for his son before Abraham died. And here we have a really old Isaac thinking first about his belly and only afterwards a blessing for his son. Okay, that's what's governing the show here. I'm old, can't see well, and I would like this tasty food such as I really love, and then I'll bless you. Okay, so we already have this kind of contrast of aged Abraham, aged Isaac. Whoa, okay. Rebekah, on the other hand, as we heard, was introduced to us in this chapter as listening. Shema. Shema. Hear, O Israel, the word of the Lord, because faith comes by hearing. She's listening. Okay? I listened to the speaking. All this emphasis on Rebekah's listening throughout the chapter. I listened. Hearing first. Hey, that's great. That's an Israelite way to go. Okay? In contrast to listening is what? Well, we have 5 senses, don't we? And that would be all the other senses that Isaac uses throughout this passage. Isaac will focus on taste. Oh, that's a fun one. What tastes good? Lunch was good. Thank you, Pastor. Okay. Tasting flock, tasting game. Isaac will rely on touch. Goat hair, human hair, the feeling of something. Why can't you tell the difference between goat hair and human hair, by the way? Some of this is kind of comical, don't you think? Okay, he'll rely on touch. He'll rely on smell. Oh, the smell of fields. the smell of goats, the smell of all of your hunting perfume, I don't know, whatever hunters wear, okay? And we were already told about his eyesight. And how good is that eyesight? Ain't working too well, okay? He can't see. It's failing. And that's why it's even comical when he'll say things like, the voice sounds... Yeah, you used your ear. The voice sounds like Jacob, doesn't it? Well, anyway, let me feel you, right? No, the voice, that's to drive the point home, right? When there was a moment there where he was starting to use the ear, hey, the voice is Jacob's voice. But anyway, let's go to some other sense. That's the Christian life. That's the Christian life. We live by the ear, but then what happens? No, I'm going to live by the eye and look at my chaotic life and determine that God isn't with me, or I'm going to live by the God of the belly. I love the taste of something, right? I'm going to live by the other senses, anything but the ear. Okay? Isaac, everything but the ear. Rebekah liveth by hearing. Okay? Now this is also very interesting. When it comes time for Rebekah, this is another one, like Lisa Hahn was pointing out these paintings. I need to pay more attention to the artwork that I'm showing you people. But when it comes time to tell Jacob the plan, and this is in verse 7. Rebekah goes to Jacob and he says, hey, I was listening. Again, listening. I have been listening. I have been living by the ear. I was listening to your father, and here's what he said. This is her rendition, verse 7. This is what Isaac said to Esau. Bring game for me and prepare tasty food that I may eat and bless you before the Lord before I die. Okay? Now, this is really fascinating to me because she changes it a little bit. This is awesome. This is a lot of fun. What does she do? Well, first of all, she takes out Esau's hunting. Okay? It's not about what you're able to hunt, what you're able to track down. And she also changes the source of the blessing. Okay? Isaac speaks of his own soul, his own strength, his own stuff being the source of the blessing. My soul will bless you. Okay? Rebekah omits that. And what does she substitute in its place? The Lord. Before the Lord. I will bless you before the Lord. And that is a loaded expression. Before the Lord is language of worship. Come worship, draw near before the Lord, and so on. Leviticus is loaded with it. The prophets have it. Before the Lord is liturgical stuff. It's worship stuff. Rebekah is taking out all the strength and focus of the belly of Isaac and replacing it with, this is a divine matter. This is a thing of worship. This is a thing of the liturgy. What is about to happen here? It's a matter of the divine service. Okay? It's not about what Esau is able to hunt, and it's not about what Isaac loves in his belly. Okay? So the work of Esau and the inner strength of Isaac are eliminated. And then the divine nature of what is happening is brought to the foreground. Okay? So what's happening here is not about our activity as much as it is the Lord's activity, and the context is liturgical. Now, astonishingly, after Rebekah does this, and I read this in the chapter, but okay, here it is again. As soon as she says this to Jacob, she starts to sound like the Lord. She starts to speak the ways that the Lord speaks. And now, my son, listen to my voice. This is verse 8. You can see it. And now, my son, listen to my voice, to what I am commanding you. That's how the Lord talks. That's the Lord. All that language. Listen, voice, command. Who commands in Genesis? The Lord commands. Nope, Rebekah does. The matriarchs do. It sounds like Pharaoh and Abimelech when they're hanging around, right? They start to sound like God. Rebekah speaks like God because the word of the Lord is coming through her. The word of the Lord is not coming through Isaac when he chases after the god of his belly. This is exactly what the Lord says to his people repeatedly. Listen to what I am commanding you and so on. Just as Rebekah will throughout this chapter repeatedly command Jacob, listen to my voice, listen to my voice, listen to my voice, listen to my voice. And scholars have puzzled over this. Like, it is very unusual for that verb command to be associated with a feminine subject, and I don't know if that's correct. And you're darn well better believe it's correct. Okay? That's because the Lord himself is speaking through this matriarch. Okay? If you want the word of the Lord, it is coming through this matriarch
She's not usurping the office.
for the benefit of his patriarch. She's not turning into a patriarch. The Lord himself is speaking through this matriarch for the benefit of it. It's not like, okay, well, the patriarch was a bad idea. It worked for a little while. Abraham was decent. And then it's, no. No, we'll see. We'll see what happens with this. But yes, speaking through this matriarch for the benefit of this patriarch. Okay? Not only does she speak like the Lord, she also acts like the Lord. Rebekah says, get 2 kids of female goats. That's the same thing that the Lord tells Abram to get. And earlier in Genesis. And then what does Rebekah also do? Clothe Jacob with garments and skin. This sound familiar? Garden of Eden. Very clear echoes of the Garden of Eden. What the Lord did for Adam and Eve, Rebekah's doing for Jacob. The only other place it occurs, Garden of Eden, she's doing this for Jacob. Okay? And she also directs Jacob's attention not to the belly, but to the things of the Lord. Okay? So in the previous chapter, we learned that they have so many flocks. Again, Abimelech, Pharaoh. The gospel spreads, and what happens? They get flock. They get people. The flock increases via the suffering of God's people we talked about before lunch. Okay? They have so many flocks, even the Philistines are envious. Even the Philistines are saying, how'd you get all that flock? Well, that's the prosperity of the Lord's church that he worked out by means of his people. Okay? Rebekah says, go to the flock. That flock that the Philistines are envying. Isaac does what? Isaac says, go out there and hunt for yourself. Get out of here. Rebekah says, go to the flock and take for me from there, from what the Lord has already provided. And then that's emphasized throughout this. Go take for me from there. Take for me the stuff that Abel used. It's the same kind of language. Abel takes from the flock, and Abel's sacrifice is accepted. Go be like Abel. Go be like Abel. Don't trust in your own abilities to get the... Go take what the Lord has given us. That'll work. That's what our sacrifices are in the Christian life. Present yourself as a living sacrifice. It's what we've already been given. Okay? So, it's really amazing because here's Rebekah. She listens more than anything else. She speaks how the Lord speaks. She acts how the Lord acts. She offers up only what the Lord has first given her. And she puts everything into a liturgical context. Now, Isaac, on the other hand, relies on everything but hearing. And he is portrayed like a blind Israel. Feeling, every time the word feel occurs in this chapter, he's feeling around like the blind will be groping at midday, like a warm day in October in West Bend. They can't, it's a sunny day. This is exactly the punishment upon God's people when they chase after the belly and leave the one true God. You can read about this in Deuteronomy, all the punishments. You guys will be groping around like the blind at noonday. And that's exactly Isaac. He's turned into a blind Israel. Okay? In sharp contrast to Rebekah. All right? So I see you, Kurt. I'm going to say just a couple other little things, and then we'll open up the floor and we'll see what you think of this. Okay? I also like what Jacob says about his father's feeling around. So on that note of feeling around, perhaps my father will feel me, and I will be in his eyes. Did you catch it there? He can't see. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I will be in his eyes. I love, it's really cool. It's brilliant. I will be in his eyes as mocking, and I will bring upon me a curse and not a blessing. And Rebekah says, upon me is the curse, my son. Listen to my voice and go take for me. If Isaac relies on his feeling and failing eyesight rather than the oracle here that was spoken, he won't be able to properly distinguish between curse and blessing. Okay? He'll bless those, speaking of bless those who should be blessed and cursed who should be cursed, he'll mess it up. He won't get it right. He'll bless those who should be cursed, that is, for trusting in their own works, like Esau is. And he'll curse those who should be blessed for clinging to the word of the Lord, like Jacob is, like Rebekah is really instilling on Jacob. Okay? That's the same thing we say when we say confusing law and gospel. And that's at stake here. Okay? And this is why there's such a difference between how has Rebekah been understood throughout the ages. Well, you look, everything before the Enlightenment is like, she's operating on the basis of the word of the Lord. That's governing all her activity. She's faithful to the word. And then you read the stuff after the Enlightenment, it's like, she's Machiavellian. She's a deceiver. She's a huge problem. What a terrible lady. You know, all these things. No. Totally, we've totally lost it. Okay? And that's why I think it's kind of fun to read into this. Luther says it's pious lying, it's pious deception.